Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you. Welcome to the friendliest product management community. Gives me so you can see this picture. Like, we are very happy people. It's a no judgment zone area. We welcome aspiring product managers and even veteran product managers as well. So welcome everyone. Welcome to the community. A little about me. I'm the founder of ProductDive. I started my product management career journey at InterSwitch and moved on to Andela. So I've had the privilege to manage or build products in the edtech space, in the financial services space, in the events industry space. We are here to listen to Gibbs, and Gibbs, used to be the VP of Netflix in the year 2005, and then he moved on to a textbook company called Checks. So what he does at the moment is that he lectures people in Stanford, in INSEAD, and we are actually here to learn product strategy. What is that thing that you can do to your product that differentiates your products from a competitor? Yeah. So welcome, Gibbs. Please, can we type in the chat section? Can we welcome Gibbs in the chat section? This is his first time, his first virtual experience in Africa. Yeah. So please, let's welcome him all the way from San Francisco. Welcome, Gibbs. Welcome.
Thanks a ton, Toby. Thanks for having me. Okay. Thank you, ProductDive. And it's fun to visit Nigeria virtually. Just one piece of housekeeping. You don't have to take pictures of all the slides because there's already a PDF waiting for you at the top of my baby website at www.gibsonbiddle.com. And towards the end of the talk, Toby will provide you lots of links. So just a little introduction to why I got interested in product strategy. The first hit product that I built was called Sesame Street Elmo's Preschool. And then I created a startup called Creative Wonders. And I sold that to the Learning Company. And at the Learning Company, I engaged in building stuff like Reader Rabbit or Oregon Trails. And then sold it to this gentleman. Some people around the world recognize him. This is Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank. And we helped the Learning Company to grow. And then we sold it to Mattel. And it was a huge deal. It was like $4.2 billion. That sounds really, really good. But it turns out to be one of the biggest disasters in business and acquisition. Sold it for $4.2 billion, but then a year or two later, the company got tossed out. The Learning Company got tossed out of Mattel and was sold at a quote loss. And I'll tell you exactly how big the loss was. It was, it's quoted to be a $3.6 billion disaster. And what had happened was we had created all this kids software that people engaged in, but it was sort of a fad. So it was at a time where you couldn't get your kids early enough on your computer. And this was like in 1999 or so. And then it was that I realized that I had failed to create hard to copy advantage. And that was sort of incremental in my thinking. You'll notice.
2005, and then he moved on to a textbook company called Checks. So what he does at the moment is that he lectures people Stanford, in INSEAD, and we are actually here to learn product strategy. What is that thing that you can do to your product that differentiates your products from a competitor? Yeah. So welcome, Gibbs. Please, can we type in the chat section? Can we welcome Gibbs in the chat section? This is his first time, his first virtual experience in Africa. Yeah. So please, let's welcome him all the way from San Francisco. Welcome, Gibbs. Welcome.
Thanks a ton, Toby. Thanks for having me. Okay. Thank you, ProductDive. And it's fun to visit Nigeria virtually. Just one piece of housekeeping. You don't have to take pictures of all the slides because there's already a PDF waiting for you at the top of my baby website at www.gibsonbiddle.com. And towards the end of the talk, Toby will provide you lots of links. So just a little introduction to why I got interested in product strategy. The first hit product that I built was called Sesame Street Elmo's Preschool. And then I created a startup called Creative Wonders. And I sold that to the Learning Company. And at the Learning Company, I engaged in building stuff like Reader Rabbit or Oregon Trails. And then sold it to this gentleman. Some people around the world recognize him. This is Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank. And we helped the learning company to grow. And then we sold it to Mattel. And it was a huge deal. It was like $4.2 billion. That sounds really, really good. But it turns out to be one of the biggest disasters in business and acquisition. Sold it for $4.2 billion, but then a year or two later, the company got tossed out. The learning company got tossed out of Mattel and was sold at a quote loss. And I'll tell you exactly how big the loss was. It was, it's quoted to be a $3.6 billion disaster. And what had happened was we had created all this kids software that people engaged in, but it was sort of a fad. So it was at a time where you couldn't get your kids early enough on your computer. And this was like in 1999 or so. And then it was that I realized that I had failed to create hard to copy advantage. And that was sort of incremental in my thinking. You'll notice that I'm always thinking about how can you delight customers, but also do it in hard to copy ways so that I'll never have to go through this again. And that in 2005, I joined Netflix as the VP of product. And this is where I learned about a lot of the ideas that I will share with you today. Toby gave a quick introduction just to understand I was the VP of product starting in 2005. And then I went on to my next startup, which is Chegg, which is a textbook rental company and homework help company in 2010. All right, and so there's 3 chapters to my talk today. The first is I'm just going to quickly share some tools, models, and frameworks that I use in defining product strategy. And then I'm going to pretend that I'm the head of product today at Netflix and share how I might talk about the current product strategy, a sort of mock presentation. And then I'm going to do 2 modern-day Netflix cases with you where I'm really curious to learn what you think. But I'm really trying to show you how product strategy informs day-to-day, month-to-month decision-making. And I'm going to start this talk with a couple of simple questions. I have 2 questions using Slido right out of the gate. I just want to know what you think, which is, should Netflix launch, they have the ability to launch something called Netflix Party. And Netflix Party lets you, during a COVID-19 era, watch something with someone else, even though they might be 1,000 miles away. So you can watch the same movie at the same time. You can chat with that. And this is a feature called Netflix Party. And the question I'm going to ask you in a moment, should they launch it? And I have a second question I'm going to ask. Netflix is testing today some magic technology where you can speed up a TV show a little bit or slow it down a little bit. And the magic is they can do it without making it look funny. The lip sync is perfect. It's magic, right? And so these are my 2 questions. And one of my tactics is, I'm going to call it a provisional decision-making decision, but I just want to know what you think about these 2 ideas right out of the gate. So you're the product manager at Netflix. And do you think that Netflix Party is a good idea and you should launch it, or no, it's not? And I just want to get a bead on what you think right now. If you weren't with us at the beginning of the session, we spent time helping people to set up Slido. All you need to do is hold up your camera, your phone, and hold up the camera app. And if you do that with holding up the QR code, a link will magically pop up and you can vote right now using Slido. Because I'm really curious to know what you think. And what I'm noticing right away is about 3/4 of you think it's a good idea and 1/4 think maybe not. And that's incredibly helpful data to me. Can you remember that data later for me, Toby?
Yeah, that's fine. 75%.
Good. And then the other thing is, if you couldn't set it up, if your Android device with Lollipop didn't work, you can just go to www.slido.com and enter the numbers 1112. That's also a great place to ask me questions. I'll be looking at the questions there at the end of the session. So then my second question is, what do you think about this idea where you as a member could slow down or speed up your TV shows or movies a little bit? It's magic. It's really hard to copy technology. But imagine you're on a commute and you have a 42-minute episode and your commute is only 35 minutes. You can speed it up a little bit. Or my daughters are doing lots of TikTok dances, and to learn them, they slow it down to like 50%. so that they can learn the dance. Okay, and can you remember this data for me as well, Toby?
Yeah, sure. Sure,
okay.
Yeah.
So it seems like in both cases, about 3/4 of the folks were saying yes. That's what I'm going to remember. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, and thanks for participating. So I'm in the first chapter. I'm just going to quickly share these tools, models, and frameworks, and then I'm going to show how those ideas in my second chapter get brought to life in a modern day context with Netflix. So first, my definition of strategy, it's a route to continuing power in a significant market. I'm actually sharing, this is a photo of the Silk Road. Imagine thousands of years ago, you were trying to find a trade route to take gold and silver and spices from China all the way to London, from the east to the west. And this trail was discovered and pioneered. They didn't know if it should happen by water or by land. And it turns out this was a route of great monetary value. It was a significant market. And it's very hard to copy a route like this going thousands of miles. This section is actually protected by the Great Wall of China. But our job in strategy is to discover a path to continuing hard to copy power, but also in a significant market. And why do I focus on strategy? There's a bunch of reasons. There's a lot of focus today in product management on how you build stuff, but I'm trying to get focused on the stuff, the what. The what and why you decide to build stuff or not. People with Agile, et cetera, they're pretty good at the how. And then your job as a product leader, and this is the hardest job, is to communicate an inspired vision of the future. And some of the strategy helps you to do that. And then the idea is you're forming hypotheses to delight customers in these hard to copy, margin enhancing ways. And that's how I think about strategy. And then we can do anything, we just can't do everything. You know, in my life, I'll have 10 things that I think are important to build, and the job is to pick one or two. And strategy helps you to decide the priority on that. And that's my last point here, is if you have a strategy, a clear strategy, it facilitates what's important and what's not. And there's one other idea. Usually, I'm an advocate of a 4-quarter roadmap. That communicates a plan and how the stuff is going to work together. And that's your job as a leader. So this is just a quickie on the 5 frameworks that I'm going to share with you. And they're all, you know, alphabet soup. Sorry for that. The first one is GLEE, and that's how you get big, lead, and then expand. But I'll share later the application. The second one, I hope today you'll remember delight customers in hard-to-copy, margin-enhancing ways. Another model, I call it GEM. How do you prioritize growth, engagement, and monetization? And then another one is how you combine a strategy with metrics to measure your projects against tactics. By the way, I wrote an essay on Medium called How to Define Your Product Strategy, and it does a 3-minute essay on every one of these models. And at the end, Toby will share links to that. And then I still believe in creating 4-quarter roadmaps. And the purpose of each, the GLEE model is to help communicate a long-term vision. DHM is how you form those hypotheses. GEM is how you get cross-functional alignment, make sure your technology partner and your product partner and your marketing partner and CEO are all on the same page. And the SMT model, strategy, metrics, and tactics, help form these hypotheses and get people very data and metric oriented. And then the roadmap communicates how stuff fits together. So all I did here is, in the PDF Toby's going to share, is I just unfolded those 3 slides. At the end of the day, these are the 5 models that I'm maniacally focused on when I'm helping to define a product strategy. And I'm going to share how I apply these ideas in the modern day with Netflix in a minute. So I just want to go in depth on just one of the models, and that's the DHM framework. Because for me, the product leader's job is to do this one seemingly simple thing, but it's pretty hard. Your job is to delight customers in hard to copy, margin enhancing ways. And margin enhancing is just that how do you create money? How do you make money so you can reinvest to build an even better product in the future? So this is the DHM framework, and I just want to share why I focus so much on just these 3 simple issues. So I saw about 3/4 of you are Netflix members, and it's not hard to describe the things today that delight customers. Netflix has made it super easy. There's a big selection. And in the States, people are paying $13, $15 a month for a lot of stuff. And you get stuff instantly. And you can play anytime, anywhere. And Netflix has tried hard to make it easy to find and then play great TV and movie shows. And then increasingly, original content like Orange is the New Black or Ozark, these are the things that are helping to build the future of Netflix. So this is how I think about delight today. And then margin enhancing, that's just the fancy way of saying making money. And it took Netflix a long time to get at this all-you-can-eat subscription. You pay one fee per month, and you can watch as much as you want. And Netflix was testing price and plans forever. And most of you that are members will notice that your price has been slowly going up. But I want to give you a sense of one of the most substantial ways that Netflix has worked to make the business model work out. And that's a concept I call right-sizing their original content investment. And all this means is Netflix would actually like to make all content available to you, okay? They just want to make sure they spend the right amount of money based on their best guesses of how many people will actually watch stuff. So I'll give an example. Netflix knows the movie tastes of 183 million members in the whole world today. And based on that data, they made a guess that 100 million people would watch Stranger Things. And they were right. But the way they right-sized it, they said, okay, given 100 million people will watch it, we're willing to make an investment of about $500 million bucks. And then they predicted, and this reveals my kind of quirky movie taste, that 20 million people would watch BoJack Horseman. And I'm one of those people, and I'm sure there's some others out there. And based on their best guess, their forecasting, based on the personalization data, they said, okay, 20 million people are going to watch it, and therefore we're going to invest 100 million bucks. And this is the concept of right-sizing. I love watching Everest climbing documentaries. Their guess was 1 million people would watch that. So they just were careful to spend 5 million bucks on that. And this is really a substantial driver of the business for Netflix. So now I want you thinking about what makes Netflix hard to copy. If I gave you $500 million to start a startup to compete with Netflix, what would challenge you? What would make it hard for you to do that? And this is a way of asking the question, what's hard to copy? And I just want to give you an illustration of how I help people to understand how important this is. This is what the non-member site looked like in circa 2004. In 2004, this is the site that you would come to join the service. And a product manager that worked for me, I think it was HB Mock, he came to me and he had a very successful A/B test. And he discovered that if you put a happy family on a couch, that inspired more people to join the service. So that was delighting folks, and it was also helping build a business. But I said, HB, that's great. I mean, awesome. But I wish you could do some stuff that delights customers and is margin enhancing, but is also hard to copy, because my guess is that within a month, Blockbuster is going to put a happy family on a couch, which is just exactly what Blockbuster did. And this illustrates why you need to do stuff that not only delights, that builds margin, but it also is hard to copy. So now I want you to think, using Slido, I want you to answer the question, what's hard to copy about Netflix? And this, we'll be building a word cloud. So if you can put it in one-word answers, that's awesome. But it's okay to do two. But if you haven't set up with Slido yet, it's pretty easy. Just hold up your camera and to the QR code, a link will magically pop up. Or you could just go to slido.com and enter the numbers 11112. Actually, 1112. Toby, what are you seeing?
Wow. So I see content, data, recommendation engine.
Good.
Quality.
I like the recommendation engine.
Yeah, I love it too.
Anything here surprise you? By the way, you guys are doing great. And you can enter multiple answers, okay? So you can enter one and then another. I'm nicely looking for 4 different categories of thinking. I see the content's big. I see recommendation and data are big. I'm looking for other things to get big. And I'm very specifically looking for 4 categories that I find are super helpful in building hard to copy advantage. I'm looking very carefully, more recommendations, predictions, works everywhere. That's interesting. Anytime, anywhere. What's the magic in making that happen? It's all good. It's all good. Personalized. Excellent. That's great. There's actually an issue. Oh, I finally saw it. I finally saw the word brand beginning to develop a little bit, which is one of the things I was fishing for. Okay, so here's how I think about my answer to the question. There are actually like 8 things that are hard to copy, but most of the time there are 4 categories of ideas: the brand, unique technology, and you guys were getting at that with the with personalization and recommendations. A network effect. For Netflix, think about how hard it was for them to make sure that every device in the world with a screen is magically connected to enable you to watch Netflix. And then this concept of economies of scale is actually what's driving the original content. So Netflix, because it has 183 million members, they're able to spend $20 billion a year on content, whereas poor Amazon is only spending $5 billion, or Disney Plus is only spending $5 billion, and poor Hulu's at $3 billion, and poor Apple somewhere between $1 and $2 billion. And this is called an economy of scale. The bigger you are, you have a cost advantage over time. So these are the 4 ideas on the left, and these are the 4 examples in Netflix. In the long term, how Netflix has built a hard-to-copy advantage. And it's really important, and it's really helped the company. Okay, so I'm gonna go in and out of character for a moment because I'm in the 2nd chapter, and I'm gonna talk about, if I were this is sort of a mock presentation of a product strategy at Netflix. If I walked into the building today, here's how I might outline the Netflix product strategy. You know, I'd say, hi, my name's Gibson Biddle, and I want to share. I want to help give everybody context for where the product's going. And I want to start with actually the positioning and the brand. Netflix is a movie subscription service that delivers fast, easy entertainment in a friendly, straightforward way. That is the product that we're trying to build. And there's one important idea. We don't say this to our customers, but we're trying to build a brand where movie enjoyment is made easy. And that's really the focus. We're trying to deliver a product. Our job is to build a product that delivers against the brand promise that our marketing partners have outlined. And then the product vision, and this is where I'm using the GLE model. Look for the G, L, and E carefully. As you recall, we initially got big on DVD, the biggest DVD by mail company in the world. And then we switched to streaming to deliver digital. And because we were digital, we didn't have to create postal systems throughout the world. We finally could expand worldwide. And you can see the G, L, and E here. And then the next chapter of our life has been maniacally focused on original content. Last year, we got 24 Oscar nominations. And then I have a theory, hypothesis about the next chapter of life that's going to be important 5 or 10 or 15 years from now. Toby, are you able to mute that person?
Yeah, just did.
Good, thanks. And then the last, this is the next chapter. This is a guess, but that 5 or 10 or 15 years from now, this next chapter is going to be about interactive storytelling, that you will be able to engage with stories. And in fact, many of you have seen that if you look carefully at Black Mirror's Bandersnatch. That's a great example of an experiment of something that might be big 5 or 10 years from now. Now, at Netflix, we're very data-driven, and our high-level engagement metric, the one metric that we focus on the most, is monthly retention. So at the start of the company back in 1997, 10% of our members would quit each month. And in 2005, about 5% would cancel each month. And we've gotten to that point where 2% of our members cancel each month. And we'll keep trying to make it better. So our most important metric is this idea of monthly retention. And then I spent some time with my marketing partner, my finance partner, the technology partner, just trying to get alignment across the company with this one model that I call GEM. And then ask the question, how do you prioritize these 3 factors: growth, engagement and monetization. And after long conversations and arm wrestling, we came to the conclusion that the first priority is to continue that growth, to build the economy of scale. And then the second priority is to build the monetization, to help improve lifetime value. And you can see there's a metric that measures each of these things that builds margin. And we're trying to make it more profitable so we can invest really in more original content. And we've chosen to put engagement third, and that's around the monthly retention metric. And it's largely because 2%, only 2% canceling is actually pretty good. So we've chosen to put that as a third factor. But this GEM model helps everybody stay aligned within the building. And then my theories and hypotheses about how to delight customers in hard to copy margin enhancing ways are focused really on 4 ideas here. There's 2 or 3 others I'm just choosing not to share today to keep it simple. We continue to be maniacally focused on personalization. We're very focused on delivering original content. We're trying to make the watching experience better and better. And later I'm going to share some thinking about a new potential feature called custom playback speed and another one called Netflix Party or shared viewing. That's what I put in the orange. And then our 4th hypothesis is really focused on 5 or 10 years out. What about this idea of interactive storytelling, where people are no longer engaged in a linear experience? They actually have some way to be a part of the story or adventure. So these are the high-level strategies on the left. And notice that we have a metric that's working to measure progress against each of the strategy. At the highest level, we're measuring retention, but these are proxy metrics. So for instance, in the watching experience, our proxy metric, because it's so hard to move retention, we need some more flexible, more sensitive metrics. And so our proxy metric for the watching experience is the percentage of customers who watch at least 30 hours a month. And my guess that number is at something like 70% today. So I have the strategy, the metric, and then the tactics or projects. You know, in the case of watching experience, you know, I already highlighted that custom playback speed and shared viewing were 2 ways that we're trying to make the watching experience better. And I'm illustrating how this SMT model works. And then here's the rolling 4-quarter roadmap. So we're in Q2 now. These are important projects on the roadmap. You can see, if you look at the watching experience, I'm going to talk about shared viewing and custom playback speed. But we're working on tools and technology to enable automated lip sync in 40 different languages. And we keep making the sound and the video quality better with Ultra HD and custom mobile encodes, knowing that so many people are on mobile and they're also working in environments that may not have great bandwidth in the internet. So I've now shared with you the mock product strategy for 2020 with you, but my endeavor is to show you how all these tools, models, and frameworks come together to help you as a product leader to communicate these things. So now what I want to do is 2 modern day cases. So I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions like, what would you do? And we will engage using Slido today. So we're going to come back to those 2 cases I asked at the very beginning, asking with no data, what would you do? So the first case I want to share with you is this idea of Netflix Party. And I asked you to make a provisional decision early, just go on your instinct. But now I'm going to give you a little bit more data to see if your thinking or your mind changed in any way. If I recall, both features, 75% folks said yes and 25% said no. So I'm going to tell you where this idea came from. There's actually a browser plugin today called Netflix Party. If you go to Patreon, there's probably 5 or 8 engineers who have created this function. And it's a new way that Netflix folks can work together. And you can see in the illustration, there's the ability to chat, to talk to folks, to use emoticons, et cetera, while you are watching a movie together. So I could watch, you know, I'm in San Francisco and my dad's in Connecticut. We could watch the same movie at the same time. This is the idea. So I want to give you, oh, and by the way, the interwebs, Twitter is all excited about it. These are all tons of juicy quotes about how awesome this feature is. And folks are using the Chrome plugin. And Netflix has the opportunity to build it themselves, okay? And the question is, should they? And just a little bit more mechanics. You need to install something. This is how the Chrome plugin works from the Patreon peeps. You install it, you find a video to watch, you open a video, and then you create your party to let other folks know that you're going to be watching. And then, or you can be the person who joins a party because your friend says, hey, I'm watching, we're all going to be watching Orange is the New Black together, okay? So this is how it works. This is how the Netflix party feature works. So now I'm going to give you a little bit more consumer insight to see how it affects your thinking or not. And we know that this is obviously a special time with COVID-19. The intuition, this is a good time to enable features like this because the world needs more sharing, the world needs more community. People are lonely and they're looking for special things to do on the interweb. But the insight I'm going to give you is Netflix has actually killed quite a bunch of stuff. And the stuff that they've killed is we actually had something called Friends in 2009. Colby, are you able to mute that person? Thanks. Friends in 2009, this was a feature where you could connect with friends who are Netflix members, and the feature only got about 5% of the members engaged in it. So we killed it. And the idea was if you want to improve retention, you need to get stuff that maybe gets into the 20 or 30% range. Because to improve retention, you need 20 or 30% of folks to engage in something to have a shot at causing them not to cancel. There's got to be meaningful usage. And the 5% wasn't enough. And in fact, we launched something called Xbox Party Mode on the Xbox in 2010, and we killed that too. It didn't get much beyond that 5% metric. And then Netflix, if you look carefully, they had a feature as they were growing international. They were trying to make it wicked easy to let a friend know about a movie, just to suggest it. And it was a way to build more referral to get more people to join. And it wasn't useful enough, so that was killed also. So I just want to give you a little bit of insight on what's going on, because this is pretty surprising. These are all social strategies, and there are social strategies, obviously they've worked amazingly well for Facebook or for Instagram or for WhatsApp. These are all highly social things. But for some reason it didn't work with Netflix. And there's really two reasons, okay? First, your friends have really bad movie tastes, okay? And that's one thing, and that's surprising. And we thought we could fix that using algorithms, and we weren't as effective as we thought. And the second is you're watching a bunch of stuff that you don't really want your friends to know that you're watching. And I call these guilty pleasures. But that's the main insight about why these social strategies were not as effective at Netflix in the context of movie watching as they were with companies like social. So today, the Netflix party, the reason it's coming up is, guess what? In the last month, the use of that Netflix party, that Chrome extension, in 1 month grew from 500,000 to 1 million in the last 30 days. And the expectation is it's going to double every month, okay? There's going to be exponential growth the way we've seen with COVID-19. And the bright engineers, because of the technology stack and the APIs, the application programming interfaces, the assessment is they can actually build this to enable it on laptops within the next month. And because the engineering's so good, it'll probably take years, this is to say it's hard to copy, for Disney Plus or Hulu or Amazon Prime to do it. So the assessment is it's likely hard to copy. And then, of course, Netflix wants to do everything that they do on all mobile and TV devices throughout the world. And so that will take a little longer, but by the end of the year, the party mode, the Netflix party feature, can be in use at any time, anywhere that you're engaged with. And the real question, the way to think about this is, will this feature delight customers in hard to copy, I think so, margin enhancing ways? And the real way to think about this is, will there be enough delight? Will there be enough usefulness? Will it be used enough so that people love it and they stick with the service a little bit longer, which is how you do the margin enhancing? Can you improve retention? And that's really the key question. So now I'm going to put it to you again. I've given you more data and information. And from everything that I shared with you, Should Netflix, they've obviously been willing to try social again and again and again, and is this the time that it would work? Should Netflix launch this party feature or not? And that's the question I put to you. So now I'd like you to think about it with the news, the data that I've shared with you, and I want to see if anyone's thinking has changed or if it's reinforced it. And if you join late, you just pull up your phone using the camera app, you scan the QR code, and Slido will magically pop up. And it's just as a reminder, I'm going to be able to answer questions using Slido, and if you look at the questions and upvote them, that's kind of a cool thing to do. Are you surprised here by anything, Toby?
Not really. Didn't change so much.
It did not change very much.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? That's really interesting. I wonder what's going on there. Huh. Yeah. Actually, I think a few people switched from yes to no. Okay.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, just
oh no, but now it's coming almost to exactly. Who knows if we changed some minds? If some people went one way or the other.
I think I can guess why.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna tell you, if I were the product leader at Netflix today, I'm gonna tell you what my decision would be, and I'm also gonna give you some insight into the reasons why. Okay. And I have one other question, which is, what's your key factor in making your decision? If you could, put a single word about why you want to do this or why you don't want to do this, I'd just love to know, because I'd love to see the word cloud get built and whether we can get insight from you folks using a word cloud in Slido. What's the one reason? Okay, so that's just, it's sustainable, it's hard to copy. Or the other question, is it sustainable? Is this a fad? Who knows? Okay, not margin enhancing. That's a way of saying, if this isn't broadly used, if it's not useful, then it likely won't improve retention. And then the user experience, if they can create a simple way to do that, that would be way cool. Okay, I'm seeing obviously a great diversity of thinking. Of course, Lockdown says, this is a way to create more value, more community for the world. It seems like the right thing to do. It's the right time. Okay, great. This is awesome. Okay, so now I'm going to tell you what I would do. And I would choose not to launch. And I just want to tell you my thinking and what I'm hoping you'll learn from this case. So my thinking is as follows. The first, we are freaks, right? Right now we're participating in a meetup that's online using Google Slides and Slido and Google Meet. And we are not normal people, okay? And you have to be careful about using your own judgment. Like, most of us would love this, and we might even use it. But I'm just acknowledging that we are not normal people for all of those things that I just talked about. And my guess is if you spent time with normal people, they would find this too complicated, too hard, okay? Think about, for you, just the simple act of agreeing on a movie to watch with your spouse or your boyfriend or girlfriend, whatever. I mean, it's hard to agree. And now think about all those steps that are required to watch a shared experience. And remember that Netflix was all about movie enjoyment made easy. And there's a real power to saying no to a bunch of stuff. And the power is, that's what's required, saying no to lots of stuff in order to create a simple experience. And my guess is that in this case, there would not be enough delight. My guess is, yes, we're biased. We think that maybe 20 or 30% of the folks would use this. And my guess is you'd see exactly the same pattern. The freaks, us, would use it. And now you've got 5%, but 5% of people using something isn't enough to fundamentally improve retention. Without delight, there's no hard to copy advantage that's built, and there's no ability to improve margin. And I just want to reinforce that we're trying to deliver against that brand. At Netflix, it's all about movie enjoyment made easy, and keeping something easy and simple requires saying no a lot. It also requires that you kill the stuff that didn't work. And that's what was going on when Netflix killed Friends, when Netflix killed Xbox Party, when Netflix killed the Tell a Friend feature. Those are all examples of Netflix being very disciplined and getting rid of the stuff that just wasn't used by 20 or 30%. And that's the discipline that's required. And that's the discipline that strategic thinking can bring you. So here's the second case, custom playback speed. And I want to give you, this is out in test right now. So if you keep clearing your cookies enough, you'll actually find this. And the way, there's sort of a Stranger Things theme here, but the way that this works is a customer can choose to make stuff a little bit faster. Maybe, you know, it's a short commute. You know, maybe the explosion scenes are boring, or they could slow it down. You know, my daughters are slowing down TikTok dances so they can learn the steps. Or maybe it's a second language. There's any reason that people might want to speed up or slow down stuff. And it's magic. It's very wonderfully well executed technology. It's super hard to copy. And I just want to give you a little bit of the consumer insight. So this is a very frequent customer request. People are asking for it, even normal people, non-freaks like us. And I think what's going on is people are very used to this on YouTube and on podcasts. I'm guessing that most of us have sped up a podcast. So this is becoming a thing. And I already know, because 75% of you thought this was a good idea out of the gate, you are absolutely willing to test it. And that's what Netflix can do. And this is what they're engaged in now. There's a small, imagine you're the product leader, and you're like, okay, I want to roll this out. And there's one thing the product leader is really scared about in this particular instance, which is, what will the creators think? What will the studios think about this? Because they believe in their art, and they probably don't want people slowing and speeding down their art. So if you were to test this, you know, and this is what happened, you test on a subset, maybe mobile devices only with original content that Netflix owns, and maybe in New Zealand, okay? And the question is, will the studio notice? And the answer is yes, they notice, okay? They noticed a small test. Brad Bird is a famous director. He did The Incredibles for Pixar. He works for Disney now. You know, this is his tweet. Welp, another spectacularly bad idea, another cut to the already bleeding out cinema experience. Why support and finance filmmakers' visions on one hand and then work to destroy the presentation of those films on the other? And I love the response down at the bottom from Gay on Main. She said, okay, boomer, you know, okay, you old white fart, dude, like me. And then another juicy quote. This is Judd Apatow. He did Knocked Up, 40-year-old virgin. Netflix, don't make me call every director and show creator on earth to fight you. I will win, okay? Obviously upset with this idea. And here's Aaron Paul from Breaking Bad. There's no way Netflix will move forward with this. That would mean they are taking control of others' art and destroying it. So you get a pretty strong sense of the studio response here. So now you know. Now imagine you're the product leader. How would you evaluate if this is a good or a bad idea? And this is where metrics are incredibly helpful. And my suggestion in this instance is you would look at the data, and if you discovered that a member used this feature, they modified their playback at least twice in a month, okay? That's a signal of usefulness. And then imagine if you look at the data and you discover that 30% of your members are using this feature at least twice a month. So imagine that's the A/B test result, and you're the product manager of this ability to slow down or speed up, custom playback speed. You look at the data, and your members at least twice a month are 30% of them are engaged in this feature. That's a measure of usefulness. So similar question. Does this have a shot at delighting customers? Is that enough usefulness? Is it hard to copy? And my argument is, yeah, this is magic. Imagine it's doing it in the 40 different languages, magic, lip sync, et cetera. It doesn't make people talk in a high voice, or it doesn't screw up the lip sync. And then if it's used enough, does it have a shot in the long term of actually improving retention to improve margin? On the other hand, you got the studios that are pissed, and they really would be pissed off, and you rely on the studios for your original content. You will rely on the studios to create that hard to copy advantage around the original content. This is the question. This is the setup. So I'd love to know, you seeing anything different from the first time around, Toby?
Yeah, it's actually different. Yeah.
What happened? What happened?
Yeah, so right now we have more people saying no. Previously we had more people saying yes.
Yeah, why do you think more people are saying no?
Well, okay, so let me let the cat out of the bag. So
no, okay.
Compromise the start.
Cat's out of bag. Okay, but there could be two reasons, okay? One is, you know, people scratching their head and saying, gosh, is 30% enough usefulness to create delight that will actually improve retention? And the second is, what do I think about really pissed off studios, okay? Those are the questions. This is interesting because in this case, we've changed some minds, okay? So I'm going to play the same game. I'm going to imagine that I were the product leader today and what I might choose to do. And by the way, there's no answer to this. We'll just have to wait and see. This is out in test now, and we'll see if it gets released to all of us or not. But I'm going to tell you what I would do. So in this case, I would lean forward and launch, and I want to share with you my learning and my thinking on this. My first thing, this is about customer obsession. If you are obsessed, you're maniacally focused on delighting customers and doing it in the hard-to-copy margin-enhancing ways, and you are not obsessed on what studios think, okay? So that's the first thing that you think about. And I believe that 30% usefulness is good enough to delight customers in these hard-to-copy margin-enhancing ways. I think if a feature is in use by 30% of the members, you've got a good shot at improving retention from only 2% cancel each month to maybe only 1.9. And if you can do that in the long term, there's a huge business win there. And that's how margin enhancing wins. And then there's another interesting concept in Netflix. It's tightly aligned and loosely coupled. So notice that this decision is made by the product team. It's not made by the content team. The content team makes decision about content. Should they do Stranger Things? Should they do Ozark? Should they do Orange is the New Black? Those are content decisions. And product is making the decisions about how do we delight our customers in hard-to-copy margin-enhancing ways. And so they don't have to think about the studios, okay? And the reason that you don't bring everybody into the room for every decision is that just slows decision-making down. So everybody's tightly aligned. They understand the overall strategy, but they are only loosely coupled, which means content doesn't weigh in on a product decision, and product doesn't weigh in on a content decision. And at the end of the day, you know, my guess is we know that storytelling has changed over thousands of years. You know, in the early 1900s, you had black and white films, and people were upset when they added sound, okay? And then they added color, and people were upset. And then Pixar came along with digital animation, and people were upset. This has been happening for years and years and years, and will continue to do this. And these are the cycles of creative destruction. And my guess is Netflix, by virtue of spending $20 billion a year, the studios will continue to work with them. They're the #1 creator, Netflix, and they're far outpacing Disney Plus or Amazon or whatever else. So the idea in customer obsession is not to think about what the studios think, it's to be maniacally focused on delighting your customers. All right, so I'm going to bring it home for you now. Strategy, okay? So remember, in this case, I did the Silk Road for you from China to London. In this case, you're a product leader, and you're trying to chart a course to the ocean, right? You're trying to do amazing stuff to dent the universe, to travel to far-flung places. You're trying to create that route to continuing power in a significant market. And it's a trail of discovery. Nobody knows what the route is. At the end of the day, these product strategies are your hypotheses about how you hope to delight customers in these hard-to-copy, margin-enhancing ways. And then these frameworks enable you to combine discipline and chaos. So the discipline part are the frameworks, like to tighten your thinking, to articulate these strategies, to have metrics that measure whether your strategies are working, to evaluate whether you're improving the business. That's all the discipline. The chaos is natural to the work that we do. Inventing the future is hard. It is messy. It is dirty. We don't know the outcome. we will engage in hundreds of experiments, and if we're lucky, 20% of them will work. Maybe only 10%, but that's all it takes. And strategy helps bring enough discipline to the chaos, but not too much, because you need both. And then your job as a product leader is to communicate an inspired vision of the future. So in my mock product strategy, hey, we're getting big on DVDs, and then we're going to lead digital streaming, and then we're expanding international, and then we're going to be amazing in original content. And guess what? Over the next 5 or 10 years, we're going to the next place, which is interactive storytelling. That's how you provide an inspired vision of the future. So I'm going to just bring it home with one juicy quote, because this is the most challenging part of your job. As a leader, if you want to build a ship, don't drum up the people to gather wood, divide the work, and give orders. Teach them to yearn for the vast and endless sea. And this is what can happen if you're highly effective as a product leader at creating that inspired vision of the future. You're giving strategic content, but nobody likes to be told how to do it and what to do. And that's the real beauty of strategic thinking. And that's why I love it so much. And this is by Le Petit Prince. And this has always been a very inspiring quote for me. So with that, I say thank you. If you know me well, I'm not quite done. There's just one more thing I want to do, which is sometimes I feel like I'm a street performer. You know, I'm breathing fire or doing my best. And there's the crowd of people surrounding. And then we've all done this. The street performer passed the hat, right? And I've done this. They pass the hat, they're asking for money, and everybody leaves, okay? Like I'll slink away without paying. I'm passing the hat right now, but I am not asking for money. What I would love, love, love is your feedback. That's all I want. And I think you guys are pretty good now at using your phone. A different link's going to pop up here. You can click on the link that magically pop up. And this is a net promoter score. 0 sucks, 10 is great. You can pick any number on that scale you want. I'd love it if you pick one number. 0 sucks, 10 is great. And then give me one idea about something that was good about this talk. This is my 503rd Net Promoter Survey for my talks and my workshops and my writing. So one idea about something that was good, and then if you can, one idea about something that would make it better. And this is how I've learned to do what I'm doing today in the context of online. It's great fun to virtually travel to Nigeria for the first time. So I would love, love, love your feedback. This is a good time, Toby, if you want to start sharing some of those links and the messaging for people. Toby's got the NPS survey. I actually built a special page for you at the top of my baby website, www.gibsonbiddle.com. If you go there, at the very top, I put a link for ProductDive, or you can remember, /ProductDive. There is if your camera didn't work, the link for the NPS survey. You can download the PDF of the presentation. It's just been waiting for you. And then I wrote a 12-part essay called How to Define Your Product Strategy series on Medium. And then I also put a link. I did a teachable product strategy course. This is the same QR code as before. And I think you got the message. I'd love, 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 love your feedback. It's incredibly helpful to me. And it's been great fun to be with all of you today. Have you been sharing all those links, Toby?
Yeah, Gibbs. They're all in the chat section.
Fantastic. So I'm at that time where I'm super happy to answer questions. And I'm going to try to remember to stop sharing my video so you can see me, right? I'm coming back. You there?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm back. Okay.
Thank you, Gibbs.
Good. Oh,
really
I get more of you. It's great to see you all. Thank you so much for being here. Good fun. I saw a comment on branding for builders. Yeah, I reached out to a friend, Boone, who introduced me to Toby, because I noticed in my data that I have lots of people from the United States and Canada, but I also noticed that there was a lot of activity in Brazil and then Nigeria, which surprised me. That's when I reached out to Boone, who used to work at Andela, and then Boone introduced me to Toby. So it's been great fun to be with you all today. If you haven't done it, I'd love, love, love your feedback. magic link is www.gibsonbiddle.com/ProductDive. And now I will shut up, Toby, and answer any questions that folks are curious about today.
Okay, thank you so much, Gibbs. So now is the time to ask your questions. If you have questions, please type in slido.com. You can also upvote your questions so that Gibbs can choose the most important, or the one that is most important to everyone in terms of priority. So please ask a question. We are almost getting to the end of today's webinar. I learned a lot. Thank you so much, Gibbs. So I'm going to check Slido. Okay, so we have questions in Slido. Gibbs, do you want me to read out the questions for you?
That would be great.
All right, awesome. So the first question here is, how do you develop a high-level product strategy for stakeholders? Is there a template that could help budding product managers to quickly get this done?
There absolutely is. I included this link with the links that Toby's provided. I wrote a 12-part essay on how to define your product strategy. And each essay is about 3 minutes of reading. It defines how the framework works, and it takes you step-by-step examples using Netflix, okay? And then the last essay, number 12, it actually outlines all the step-by-step exercises, and there's a link to shared pre-formatted Google Slides where I actually put the framework there, and you can do the work on your own for your very own company. And everything I just described is totally free. You know, the only thing I love in return is you'll notice at the end of that series that there's a Net Promoter Score survey. So I just love, love, love your feedback. If I recall, that series has got a NPS of like 83. For context, NPS of 50 is considered very good. 70 is world class. So anytime you get above 70, I call it, you know, dance on rooftops. Anyways, I wrote the series to make it simple and easy for you to do just what you described. You know, on my site, there's other videos as well. But I would just start with that. You know, some people are readers and some people are watchers. But I think like reading that whole series is only like 48 minutes. So it's pretty efficient. And I gave you the tools to do it on your own. All right, what else you got, Toby?
All right, cool. So the next question, what's the best way to get better at product strategy?
Yeah, so, you know, I'm a teacher, okay? So from a teacher point of view, you share the tools, models, and frameworks, okay? And then I walk you through the exercises, see how I apply it. But then you got to do the work yourself, okay? So my encouragement is as follows. You could try to do it for your own company. Recognize, and you'll see this in my Medium series, you can also do it for your own swim lane or pod or squad. So commit your own thinking. The other thing you could do is do it for another product you know and love. Like often I'll encourage people to do the exercise for Instagram. Like what's Instagram's product strategy? What's their high-level metric? What are some of their proxy metrics? Like do a product you know and love. What I am saying from a teacher point of view is you learn by doing, okay? So you could do it for real in your job, or you could do it with products that you know and love. And then I think, Toby, I think you have workshops, I have workshops. You know, at some point you can commit yourself to, the reason that workshops exist is that we're all humans and we all are not quite as disciplined as we wish we were, okay? Which is we need somebody kind of looking over our shoulder to keep us going, right? I know I have a course on this on Teachable. That's self-paced, and it's got all the stuff I'm talking about. But what I nicely joke about sometimes is sometimes self-paced means slow-paced, right? So the cool thing about work is you got someone nicely there to motivate you, okay? So I actually, you know, beyond reading, you might look for a workshop on product strategy. What else you got, Toby?
Right. Well, okay, so there's another question. What are the best factors to determine you are using the right strategy?
Okay, so
Like how, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the tricky part, and you'll see this in my essays. My first year at Netflix, I sort of articulated maybe 7 high-level theories and hypotheses. And remember, these are all hypotheses. You know, these are my best guesses on what's going to work. And you know, the work that we do in product is half art and half science. So you know, I've talked about the stuff that worked in Netflix, but I'll tell you my failed hypotheses. In 2005, one of my theories was social would work, because social was working so well with Facebook. So I put it out there, and obviously I was wrong. I had another failed hypothesis that a highly entertaining experience would improve retention. And there was something called Max on the PlayStation. Max was really funny and really engaging and helped you to pick movies, etc. And it turned out that the theory was failed. You know, a more entertaining experience didn't improve retention. It turns out that the idea of movie enjoyment made easy is much more important. You just come to Netflix and it's like a automated vending machine for movies, okay? So my point is, in my first year, I probably had 6 or 7 high-level theories and hypotheses, and I was probably right 4 out of 7 times, okay? So this, you know, you create your hypothesis and then you find ways to test it as quickly as possible. And then you got to think long-term. I mean, the reality is that we pounded on social for 3 years at Netflix before we were convinced that it wouldn't work, okay? We actually pounded on that entertainment theory for 2 years before we understood it didn't work. The important thing is we had a proxy metric for each of those. We had a way of understanding if we were on the right track or not. A winning strategy was personalization. The idea was personalization would delight customers in hard-to-copy, margin-enhancing ways. Our proxy metric for that was the percentage of members that rated at least 50 movies in their first month. And I often have people guess, you know, what that number would be. And they usually guess maybe 2% of your members will rate at least 50 movies. We actually drove that number all the way up to 30%. And that was an important signal that people understood that the more that they rated, the better their experience would be. And that gave us much more confidence that in the long term, this idea of personalization would work. Anyways, its short answer is, how do you learn? How do you get better? You got to do this. Okay, you have to dare to form a hypothesis. My hypothesis is, you know, this idea will delight customers in hard-to-copy, margin-enhancing ways. The proxy metric that I'm going to use to measure whether we're making progress or not is X. And then the projects that I'm doing to experiment with in the short term with this set of ideas, those are the projects or tactics. And I just did the strategy plus metric plus tactic project, the SMT model. Anyways, I would just read some of the stuff that I shared with you, and then, you know, begin to frame your thinking, you know, in forms of hypotheses.
All right, cool. So, Gibbs, you want us to take any more questions? We've actually gone out of time. We are 12 past the time.
It looks like we still have plenty of people, so I'm happy to go. Let's go. Yeah, let's go 3 more minutes.
All right, cool. So the next question is, how do you develop product strategy for a B2B business?
Oh, that's great. That's a great question. Yeah, so there are differences between B2B and consumer. I find it similar. Trying to think of a good example. Okay, well, so obviously my entire career I've been in consumer. I've avoided enterprise and B2B. However, I've done product strategy workshops for 40 different startups in the same room at the same time, and they're all enterprise. So I've taken them through all these exercises, and they've worked and been helpful. The differences, and I just have to acknowledge the differences. With B2B, like, it's harder to A/B test ideas, okay? And in consumer, A/B testing makes it much easier. In enterprise, you have a little duality, which is the person consuming your software is different from the person who's paying for it. So you have to sort of check in with both of those customers, if you will, and that adds a little bit of complexity. And then in the world of consumer, we do MVP stuff. We put out stuff that's, maybe good enough. In enterprise, sometimes you can't put out good enough stuff because people are really paying for it, okay? So what I do is I nicely acknowledge the differences, but think about all those hard to copy effects. There is a huge network effect in B2B and enterprise. There's a huge advantage in building a brand. There's a huge economy of scale. There's actually another one that's bigger in enterprise that's less important in consumer, and that's called switching costs. So think about what it is if you're using Oracle stuff, how hard it is to switch over to Salesforce, for instance. Just trying to give you a sense of the deltas. But I think when you dig into it, I've been meaning to write an essay just on B2B and enterprise with some cases, examples. I just haven't had time for it. And really, the tools and models and frameworks I use, they're sort of 80% right for everybody, right? Because it doesn't matter if you're consumer or enterprise, you have special conditions of your company or your startup or your B2B company or your category. So, you just have to do the hard thinking. There's no one size fits all for any of these tool models or frameworks, but it's just a way of thinking and providing discipline to the chaotic process of invention.
All right.
One more?
Thank you, Gibbs.
Want to do one more?
One more. We've run out of very Gibbs. Okay, let me check. So this is just 10 seconds. How do you think through converting business strategy into product strategy and communicate that to drive alignment?
Yeah, that's a great question. Notice my Glee model where I said Netflix was going to get big on DVD, and then it was going to lead streaming, and then it was going to expand international, and then it was going to go into original content. These are high-level hypotheses too. That is the place. The Glee model is the place where product strategy meets company strategy. And that's one of the reasons I use that particular tool, model, and framework. And then the other thing that's tricky with company strategy, with product strategy, I don't have to spend too much time with my marketing partner because I know what the brand and positioning wants to be. But when you're doing company strategy, now you have to spend a lot of time with your partners in marketing or finance or operations or customer support. So it's a different audience with a different set of tools, models, and frameworks. But what I love is that the Glee model kind of meets halfway between product strategy and company strategy by providing a tool to help you outline a product vision. All right, Toby, thanks a ton for having me. If folks haven't done the survey, I'd love your feedback. Keep sending them all those links, Toby, because it has a link to my essay on how to define your product strategy, the link to complete the survey, the PDF of everything that I shared today. So it's just waiting there for you. Cool.
All right, cool. Thank you, Gib. So I just shared the links on the chat section. We'll be rounding off this webinar very soon. I would like to make a special announcement. So just give me 2 minutes and then we can round off the webinar. I will present my screen, share my screen. Okay. All right, great. So very quickly, ProductDive now has an online, we now have an online workshop that starts the 30th of May to the 27th of June. And the good thing about this is that you can actually take the different modules. And so, for example, if you're interested in learning product metrics, you don't exactly need to learn the entire product management course that we've been offering in the past. You can learn product metrics alone. You can learn product strategy alone. And if your desire is to learn the complete product management course, that is also available. And that runs from May 30th to June 27th. So what is the special offer? At the moment, and that offer ends by the end of tomorrow, if you're taking the complete product management workshop, that price, the fee for that workshop is 95,000 Naira. However, after tomorrow, the price goes back to 135,000. And if you are taking the different module, which is product strategy, if you pay now or before the end of tomorrow, the workshop costs 9,500. Yes, so grab your offer now. Offer ends 8th of May. Please connect with us. We're on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and if you have questions, you can send us an email to hello@productdive.com, and you can also join the Product Dive Stack community. We are always available to answer your questions. We have experienced product managers in the community, and please look out for more comms on the workshops. We would send you emails afterwards. So that will be it for now. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much, Gibbs.